Welcome friends to a discussion video for Total War Warhammer 3's upcoming DLC Tides of Torment, with this episode focused on my bold predictions for the High Elves getting a new legendary lord, Sea Lord Aislinn. As a side note, this is only just my speculation, so I do understand some or even most of them may be wrong upon the actual release date of the DLC. And with that being said, please let me know in the comments your predictions or what all of you would love to see for Tides of Torment. Also, for longtime fans of Warhammer Fantasy, please do let me know in the comments any inaccuracies I make for Aislinn in terms of the lore, as that kind of feedback will help me understand the character and the world of Warhammer better. At the end of the day, it's the in-depth discussions I love having with all of you in the community on things you love about the game and also ways it can be improved. Now, in the showcase video, I am using Cataph's High Elf Sea Patrol mod, which makes Cothique a playable faction for the High Elves, and Sea Lord Aislinn is their faction leader with his own unique units and faction effects. The theme of both Cothique's faction and Sea Lord Aislinn is High Elf naval supremacy. Now, I understand in the lore of Warhammer Fantasy, the Dark Elves are terrors of the seas with their Black Ark mobile bases in the water, but it should be noted the High Elves island of Ulthuan has a near perfect defense, all thanks to its navy under the ruthless command of Aislinn. I do say he is ruthless because in the lore, it's said that he has led assaults into Norska in retaliation for their attempted raids on Ulthuan's coasts. Side note, with Aislinn's inclusion as the third legendary lord along with D'Challa and Sael the Faithless, it really sets up a perfect recipe for a three-way conflict, as each of those races would have more than enough deep-seated hatred of each other for more than one reason. Now, Slaanesh wants elven souls, elves are disgusted by both Slaanesh and the monkey Norscan humans, and Norska themselves hate elves, particularly Aislinn, for launching Scorched Earth campaigns in their homes. Alright, now, with the lore side out of the way, let's get into the faction effects. Now, most of these factions and lord effects, of course, will be naval themed, as seen with the immunity to high seas, reef, and storm attrition, specific to Aislinn's own army, and minus 33% casualties suffered at sea for his additional armies. Leadership +5 for both his faction and his own personal army, double experience gain for units fighting at sea, and additional ambush success and campaign movement range for Aislinn's own army. So essentially this is all playing into the lore of Aislinn being that protector on the shores of Ulthuan. Now, you can instead decide to go on far naval expeditions, like let's say venturing into Norska and reliving his campaign there, laying waste to them with his Scorched Earth ruthless tactics before they actually build up and invade you later on. Or if you want to be even more ambitious, go and hunt pirates like the Vampire Coast, or use the sea lanes to track down Lokir Felhart and bring him to justice, which, if I do remember right, both Aislinn and Lokir fought in the lore, or at least had a very intense rivalry with each other, as they should. I'm also using the Phoenix Court mod, which is a mechanic similar to the Tower of Zar mechanic of the Chaos Dwarves with Cothique. It is cheaper for them to gain nautical seats to climb up the High Elf political ladder. For the two other faction effects, Lord and Hero recruit rank +3 for Lords of Shadow and Heavens casters, and the drastic minus 80% charge bonus during siege battles. I don't know if that is a reference to anything in the lore for Cothique or for Aislinn himself, but for all of you fans in the comments, if you do know anything as to why those would be included or any lore specific things, please do let me know. The minus 80% charge bonus, it's not too bothersome, at least for my personal playstyle with Aislinn, as thematically Aislinn should not specialize with cavalry, and well, you should mostly be out at sea anyway, so siege battles should not happen too much in this particular campaign. Alright, let's move on to the campaign map and take a look at his starting army, which I will say I did use a mod that basically allows me to customize starting units, so yes, I know that is a bit of a cheat, but at the same time, this is just to showcase my thoughts on what I would love to see for his starting army in the official release. Okay, now with that being said about Aislinn's starting army, please do let me know in the comments if you would have customized his army differently to match it more lore and thematic wise, or in terms of overall game balance. I do want to know your thoughts on what you would love to see for Aislinn's starting army, if you think it needs to be toned down a bit because it's overpowered, or if it needs to be buffed up a bit more. Welcome to the campaign map, my friends, and also to Aislinn's starting position, which thematically and lore-wise is very accurate, with Cothique under our complete control, one capital city port settlement, and also a minor city port settlement. Aislinn's starting army, pretty well balanced in my personal opinion. 2 vanilla units of spearmen, and also the rest of his army, well, also Illyrian Reavers as a vanilla unit, but the rest of his army are his own unique faction units. C Company are basically like Lothern Sea Guard, except with spears they have swords, meaning these 2 units can hold their own in combat if enemy infantry do close the ranks on them, and also a better version of them, the Silverhelm Marines. Now, it's their more elite version, so less entities, but overall higher stats compared to the C Company. Lothern Sea Rangers, these are basically like his version of Shadow Warriors and Shadow Walkers, so they're going to be used for skirmishing purposes. Lothern Skycutters and the Mirrorworms, though, are our 2 arguably most valuable units, and also the ones that I'll probably rely on. Now, we do start off this campaign at war with Marienburg, and it's made a little bit more difficult with the fact that I am playing with SCM's Marienburg mod, which makes Marienburg its own unique faction with its own legendary lord, mechanics, and also pretty powerful units too. But early game, your elven units should be able to wipe the floor with them. I would say you do have to play pretty aggressively in terms of subduing them, or at least forcing them into suing for peace. Now, I am going to fight this battle manually just because I do want to show all of you the up-close looks of the units, because I do love the theming behind them. Plus also, I do want to showcase to all of you the effectiveness of all of them in battle. Welcome to the battlefield portion of the video, my friends, and first we are going to take a look at the Lothern Skycutters Flying Missile Chariot unit. Now, I absolutely love the look and design of these. These are official Warhammer Fantasy units for the High Elves, and personally I think they could nearly double as alternative artillery. Now, the reason I say alternative artillery, we can see here their range isn't nearly as impressive as most other artillery, but they also have a pretty strong missile strength, and also for chariots, they have a at average best charge bonus. But what the mod authors have done with this unit is they've really given them tons of versatility. Now, the reason I say versatility is you could use them to snipe out enemy range units and essentially outgun them that way. You could use them to charge into those vulnerable enemy range units, but I would prefer to pick them off first. And in this instance too, we are going to be using our Illyrian Reavers shock cavalry as distractions for the enemy mortars in the distance for them to fire upon those units, while our Skycutters close the distance on them and snipe them from afar. Moving into Vanguard deployment, we have our Lothern Sea Rangers, which admittedly are just reskin Shadow Warriors and Shadow Walkers. Now, I don't know if these would get an official release for the DLC, but also please do let me know in the comments if this is something that you would love to see just for variety purposes or even for roleplay, as technically speaking these are lore friendly, and you could almost roleplay them as Elven Marines, so to speak, in terms of quickly deploying them past your front lines and jebaiting the enemy, well, jebaiting them in a way to get them to run out of their defensive position. So these are going to be our harassing units. And also, not to be too impatient here, but I absolutely love the look of the Mirrorworm here. Now, yes, I know the elves do have their monster units already with their dragons, but also At the same time, for a charging monster unit, and personally, I hope the official release for the Merworm is going to have the anti-large trait. Now, with this Merworm, the mod author has given them poison attacks, which pretty good debuff in terms of lowering damage output of other enemy units and enemy monsters, so to speak. Pretty strong weapon strength, although personally I think I would love to see it boosted up a little bit more to be in line with the Merworm being a hunter of other large monsters. Now, I also hope that the Merworm gets as many boosted stats as possible, just because it would be really cool to see it go up against Norskin mammoths and absolutely demolish them too. Now, this is just me asking for a lot, and I do know that the mod author has given the Merworm these stats in terms of balance purposes, but also please do let me know in the comments yourselves if you would love to see the official release of the Merworm be lore accurate in terms of essentially being a giant monster hunter, and also, but at the same time, having that versatility of charging through enemy front lines and causing fear as well. Now, moving on to our actual front lines and the core of our army, Silverhelm Marines and the Sea Company. Now, these are essentially like the Lothern Sea Guard. They have their versatility in terms of being able to act as missile units before engaging into melee combat with their swords and shields. Now, even though they are almost just reskins of the Lothern Sea Guard, I personally think that these would be very good units to have for Cothique in terms of making them feeling unique from the other elven factions, and also just standing out too. I absolutely love the look of them. Very much sea-based and marine-focused in terms of their color scheme. Last but definitely not least, let's take a look at Sea Lord Aislinn. Absolutely love the design and also the theme of his armor in terms of reflecting Cothique's naval heritage, but also with this mod itself, his role on the battlefield is very similar to Tyrion in terms of being a frontline commander and also being able to duel one-on-one. With the official release though, I really hope the developers decide to make him more of a support unit in terms of hanging out in the backline, providing buffs to all of his units, and also area of effect statuses. Now, I say all of that just because lore-wise it would very much fit his playstyle to be strategically cunning, and he is listed as ruthless in the books as well. Now, please do let me know if that's something that you would personally love to see in terms of his official release, just because of the fact that we already have Tyrion and Imric as elven frontline commanders. But with Aislinn, I think having him as that backline commander and opening up different kinds of new strategic playstyles for high elf players would be very much something that a lot of fans would like in terms of refreshing gameplay. Alright my friends, for the battle part of the video, I'm going to do my best to record cinematic shots of Cothique's units in action, particularly the Skycutters and the Merworm itself, but also my friends, do let me know what other unique units to Cothique you would love to see in the actual release date of Tides of Torment.
Orders understood. Lothen Seaguard. For off one. Hold true. Silver Helms. Lothen Seaguard. It shall be done.
Alright, fast forwarding a couple of turns into this campaign, something I should have mentioned in the beginning of the video is that Sea Lord Aislinn has his own semi-horde mechanic similar to the vampire counts with his own fleet and also buildings that he can have on the go. And I absolutely love this and really hope that it gets added to the actual official release DLC, just because of the fact that I do like the option of bringing your army on the go as the High Elves, and also it really switches up the typical empire building of the High Elves as well. And speaking of empire building, let's take a look at some of my acquired settlements here. Now, this is an extreme version of what you could do with this campaign for Aislinn. I took him and conquered and also did a little bit of diplomacy in Albion. I'm also playing with several modded factions, like the one that from OVN that adds the Truthsayers as potential factions to encounter, and I've somewhat made them my ally in this, taking out the neighboring Norscan faction of theirs on Albion and essentially creating my own home base on there. Now, as a consequence of that, I did give up my settlements in Ulthuan here. Well, actually, funny enough, trading them to Albion using a trade settlement mod. And yes, that's just my personal playthrough and what I would expect well, not necessarily lore friendly wise of Aislinn to do, but I am somewhat reliving his conquest of the Norscan homeland too, about to make my assault on Wulfric's wanderers here at the Trollfjord. Taking a look at Aislinn's building options for his horde mechanic, you can see that there's the very helpful and typical ones like increased fleet growth and also minus upkeep, but also you gain the income from raiding, which High Elves don't necessarily do, but with this kind of playstyle and Aislinn's army, you're kind of incentivized and behooved to do so. Now, the important building that you start off with is the military one in terms of your ship companies and being able to recruit your bread and butter units like the Sea Company and Lothern Sea Guard if you decide otherwise. But also, as you advance down the line, you'll gain access to those advanced units like the Lothern Sea Rangers and also the Silverhelm Marines. Later on the track though, as you level up, I definitely recommend choosing and investing into this building here, or also eventually the Mist Mage's Pinnacle. And Sea Lord Aislinn down the line does have buffs and level ups that increase the effectiveness of Mirrorworms. With Aislinn skills, there's the typical blue campaign line as well as the Lord yellow battle line, but also there's additional bonuses like the red line here, Bounty Mathland, boosting up those Mirrorworms like I mentioned, and also later down the line you gain extra bonuses to your Cothique specific units as well, with the later skills of Herald of Mathland and also Dominion, increasing the physical resistance of your Mirrorworms. So in a way, it's kind of like it's incentivizing you or encouraging you to create those doom stacks, and it's very much viable to have 20 Mirrorworms just charging across the battlefield and wreaking havoc. As I mentioned before, this is just my personal playstyle of Aislinn's modded campaign. Definitely tell me in the comments if you would have taken a different route, or if you would have stayed and protected the Donut Island of Ulthuan. In fact, I think that would have been the more lore accurate version of what Aislinn would do in terms of patrolling only the seas around Ulthuan before launching his attack into Norska. I just decided to do that early game just to really show you the potential and direction you can take with your empire building. You can definitely easily take out Nikari's faction with the help of the other elves here too, and really, Ulthuan itself is a pretty protected island, so if the devs actually release Aislinn as the official third legendary lord for Tides of Torment, I wouldn't be surprised if he started his campaign far, far away from the donut. In fact, it would be interesting if he started off in Norska, although I think for the Norskan players that would be a bit of a slap in the face after they received Sail the Faithless. But do let me know in the comments if you think that he should start off in, let's say, maybe the High Elven colonies near Cathay, or also in a completely different location. I do really want to hear your thoughts and comments, just because of the fact that it's the kind of discussion and speculation that I love having with you all in terms of what we think it would make the most sense, either lore-wise or game balance-wise. And if you've made it this far into the video, my friends, thank you so much for taking the time to hear my personal predictions and potential ideas on what we can expect for Aislinn. Again, I know all of this that I said up until now may be completely wrong, but hopefully some of what I was saying in this video does come to pass and is true for the official DLC release. And before I end the video, my friends, please do let me know in the comments discussion ideas you would love to see for potential future videos talking about races that long deserve that overdue free LC or DLC. I can't guarantee that Creative Assembly is going to be generous to us and give us a free legendary lord with some new faction updates and race updates as well. I'm talking about you, Lizardman, Vampire Counts, Vampire Coast, Bretonia. You get the drift. But until then, my friends, take care, have a great day, and I'll save you all a seat at the table for the next adventure.